Hi guys, it's Ultraviolet Morgan here. So I'm going to do a video on why I hate the Supernatural ending and why I hate the Supernatural final episode. So this is obviously different because it is not really about tarot at all in any way. So I just watched the very last episode. If you haven't watched it, obviously don't watch this because I'm obviously going to talk about all the reasons that I did not like it. Wow. I wasn't happy. It really didn't. Okay. 15 years, an epic series. Every episode has been pretty amazing. You know, some are better than others. You talk about Bugs a lot, the episode Bugs. Bugs was a better episode than this episode. This episode had no plot. It had nothing interesting. Really, the only thing... There's one part I liked. The one part I liked was when Sam smushed pie in Dean's face and Dean ate it anyway. That was fun. But they created... So in the episode before that, everyone, the whole world was gone except for Sam, Dean, and Jack, who I always want to call Leo because he looks like Leonardo DiCaprio, who played Jack, but I still can't remember to say Jack. But anyway, Jack. So Jack... There's just nobody on the entire planet except the three of them. And then they find a dog. And then Chuck gets rid of the dog. Then Jack sucks up all the energy from God's violent anger. And then they turn God into immortal. Now see, that's interesting. That has some interest. Now we've got Chuck, and he's really just Chuck. And maybe we could have talked about, you know, what it was like for Chuck to just live his life as a person. Or, you know, maybe the last thing we want to see was just him crying and screaming, guys, guys, guys. Whatever. That episode was a good episode. But you're sitting there with all these questions, like, what now? What now for the brothers? What now for the world? What now, you know, all together? Which, if you'd ended with those questions and just let us figure those out in our head, I suppose, that would probably have been fine. But what we get is not an answer to what now, really. We see the boys in the bunker, and they go to a pie thing and have a good time, and it's cute and funny and lighthearted. And then they find a case, and then they kill some vampires. All the spoilers here, guys. All the spoilers if you've already been, you know, thinking you weren't gonna. If you didn't believe me the first time. And then there's kidnappings, which are vampires, which isn't your normal vampire MO at all. So they've kidnapped some kids. They've come to rescue the two kids. And the vampires wear clown faces for no reason that makes, other than, you know, not to be seen, I suppose. But I mean, and they wear them, even in their own lair, they're wearing them. Like, just a plot device that doesn't make any sense and isn't explained. And then they behead some vampires, which to me, you know, as a quick, thing to show that they're out doing stuff and that they do more than what they have in an episode. To show them hacking up some vampires is fine, but to me, it's boring. It's not really that interesting. The vampire has a head, then it doesn't. A little bit of fancy footwork. It's story-wise, beheading vampires is the least interesting thing about the show. So, our big last fight, our big last case is boring. It's beheading vampires. There's no mystery to solve. They don't learn anything. They don't get any new information. They don't, nothing. And what about, like, Eileen, I think was her name? She vanished. She was from this world, and she vanished. So she wasn't, put back to a different world. She just vanished like everybody else. And then, Jack brought everybody back, or brought people back. Did he bring her back? There was no addressing that. It didn't seem like he did, because we didn't see her. So why not? Did he bring... It's like he just brought people back, and they didn't notice had ever been gone. But then all the people close to Sam and Dean were gone, so it was just the two of them. And they didn't even address, they weren't grieving for Cass. There was a moment. And then it was just like, well, we gotta go on with our lives. And then he smushed the pie in his face. Come on. There was no addressing of Cass telling Dean he loved him. There was nothing for the, of Dean. God, I'm gonna fucking cry. Addressing even alone what his feelings were towards Cass. It was like that didn't even happen. And the only person who had anything to say about Cass was Sam. And Sam, and then Dean just put plug in it. I wasn't even a major Destiel shipper. It was like a casual ship. Like, I'd watch some videos, or, I'd enjoy a little subtext or whatever. It was casual. I wasn't, like, I didn't mind it being subtext. I liked the subtext. I thought it was more fun that way, actually. But, which, a lot of people disagree with. But then they brought it out, made it canon, and ignored it. Really? No, I'm not happy. I am not happy with this ending. Like I said, the episode itself was boring. We had so many great shows. We had so many interesting shows. Nothing interesting happened. They had pie. They fought some vampires. And then Dean backed into a nail or some rebar or something. And it went all the way through him. And then he had the longest death scene. I even am crying, and I'm thinking... And I don't want Dean to die, but I'm thinking, oh my God, Dean's taking a long time to die. I didn't want to have that thought. I didn't like that I had that thought, but I did. My gosh, it was just, it was, in some ways, it was touching, I guess, to have him have this goodbye scene with his brother, but there was no point to it. It's like he tripped and died. It's so stupid. It's like, and this was their first ever hunt that we know of after the world was reset and after God stripped of his powers, and so God's not like keeping them going to be the heroes of their book anymore. But that hasn't, in their head they're still, that's still who they are. But apparently, they can't, without all of that behind them, they can't fight one fight. The very first time they go out, Dean just backs into a nail or some rebar or whatever it was. I don't know exactly what rebar is, some type of metal something or whatever. But I mean, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And then people are like, we think it was perfect, and Dean went out fighting like he wanted to, and Sammy got to live a normal life like he wanted to. And it's like, okay, but I mean, Sammy tried to live a normal life before, and it just didn't work. Dean tried to live a normal life. You can't say Dean never wanted a normal life, that all he ever wanted was to die hunting. I don't know, maybe he said that, but I think he was overcompensating, as he was with other things. Um, he was happy with Lisa. He was happy being a family man. So to say all, Dean ever wanted was to go out hunting is kind of ridiculous to me. And if he, and, Cass went out, he sacrificed himself so that Dean would survive, so that Dean could save the world. Dean's death was so pointless. He didn't sacrifice himself. He didn't, I get that he backed into the nail or whatever it was so that we could have this slow goodbye scene or whatever. But I mean, he didn't. The bad guy didn't even take him out, which I guess is good in its own way. But I mean, did he really go out hunting? He went out, he killed the monsters, and then he backed in his, I don't know. I just don't feel like he went out hunting. I don't feel like he had a hero's death or whatever. And there was just no explanation of. I don't even like that they were. I mean, I get the sort of poetic narrative of it being the two of them, like it was in the beginning. But even though it was the two of them, they still had a few other people in their life. We hadn't met Bobby yet, but he existed. We hadn't met their dad, but he existed. They were looking for him. Jess had just died, so but they had, like, just for them to be so completely isolated and bereft. And then, Dean didn't even get a chance to build a life after that. And then I suppose if he had died like that and then been reunited with Cass and, then people would say that's not the show that they wanted it to be or whatever. But if he had then been reunited with Cass and declared his love for Castiel, which we knew wasn't probably going to happen, but that would sort of make some sort of sense. Like, I mean, he got to go to heaven and drive his car. Well, that's great. I mean, and that's the thing, is like another reason why I just felt like it was nothing, because we all knew that was going to happen. I mean, everybody knows, we all knew that eventually they'd die together or part, and so at some point they'd be back together again. So to me, that's a non-ending. I wanted an episode that was going to give me something I didn't already have, and I already had that. I already knew eventually we all die. And of course, we already know too that, when heaven was the way it used to be, where everyone had their own heaven, they were told that, they would have a heaven together because they were special cases. So, we basically knew they'd be together. Of course, then they changed heaven or whatever, so everyone's together, and that's great, but it's pretty light on substance. There was no substance. It wasn't an interesting episode. And I mean, I cried. Once I realized Dean was dying and he was like really gonna be dead, the waterworks started, the ugly cry, the and everything. But being able to make someone cry in an episode does not make it a good episode. It was boring. There was no plot. They ate pie. Dean died. Sam went on. They showed a montage. Half of the episode was a montage of Dean driving and Sam growing old. Okay. Well, everybody got what they wanted. I don't think that makes a perfect ending either. That Sam got what he wanted and Dean got what he wanted, supposedly. Doesn't make a good ending because everyone got what they wanted. Sam had a son and named him Dean. It's nice. A little hokey, but it's nice. Why didn't he have two sons? Why didn't he have another one that he named Castiel? Dean and Cass. He had one little boy anyway. Whatever, but... I mean, I would have liked there to be some revelation, something. There was had no substance. Like, as an episode on its own, it just didn't do anything. I would have wanted an episode that had substance, had a story, had some plot, had some revelations, had at least a hint of maybe... So Cass goes on to heaven rather than being in the empty. He's gone to heaven and he's reconstructed heaven. And that's it. And Dean doesn't even react to that. I got like shininess right there. So, how about if there had been a hint somewhere along the way when they were around that Cass wasn't in the empty, that Cass, tried to reach out just to say I'm okay. I'm not in the empty. I don't know. It just didn't have anything satisfying. And people are saying it was such a great episode. And as a standalone, I mean, just as an episode, it has nothing. Once, like I said, and then, it made us cry, and then it made us happy that they were back together again. But there just wasn't, man. I'm a reader, and I watched a lot of movies and a lot of series, and a lot of series conclusions. And, at the end of a book, you wrap things up, but there's something, I don't know. You get something. I just didn't feel like it gave anything. There wasn't anything. Like we know eventually they're gonna die and be reunited. So how is that interesting? It's just not interesting. It's just not interesting. Oops, my stupid charger needs to be replaced because it just kind of fell out. I'm not happy. I'm so unhappy, and I'm just, like, spending my whole day being unhappy, and I don't know what else to do. I expected to be sad. I expected to be sad all day. I expected, because the show is over. I had thought for a long time that it would end with them dying. And carry on, there'll be peace when you are done. Don't you cry no more. And that would be the end. So, I'm not mad because they died. I'm not mad because it was sad. I'm unhappy that it's over, of course. Maybe mad that it's over. But I'm mad about how it ended. Not that it ended. If you get my drift, I suppose. I wanted to sit down to an awesome hour of TV that was gonna tear me up and hopefully put me back together a little bit. And I just didn't feel like I got an awesome hour of TV. I got 45 minutes of seeing the characters, two of the characters that I liked. No questions really answered. No revelations, no nothing new. For 45 more minutes doing boring things. I get annoyed a lot of times when people say, something that I liked, and they'll say it was boring, and I get the sense that they say it's boring because they don't like those characters or um, something else, But it wasn't that. It was just boring because nothing interesting. The only thing interesting that happened was pie getting smushed in his face and him dying. And it's great that we saw. And I know they did have COVID restrictions, and there wasn't much they could do about that. Um, it's great that he went to heaven and he saw Bobby. And then Bobby explained a little bit about how heaven was like reconstructed, and then he drove. But I mean, like I said, just nothing. We got to see them again for 45 minutes, but I wanted to see them doing interesting things, not boring things. And the dog is cute, and a lot of people liked the dog, and the dog made some people cry and whatever, and the dog was fine, but dog just showed up last episode, so, like, I don't care about the dog that much. just because it's a dog. I mean, I cared about the dog when Dean cared about the dog, because it was the only thing. And of course, the change of Dean of really being a dog hater to, and he was a dog for a while, and then he stopped kind of hating dogs and whatnot. I feel like if I'm like too close, that I'm too, whatever. That's a little creepy. It's getting long. Probably no one's listening anymore. I can't wait to watch other people's reaction videos, I suppose. Like I said, I don't know what to do. If I should just go watch something else that's not really interesting to me, or if I should try to watch... I definitely don't want to watch episode 1. I could maybe watch some of the, episode 4 I started watching, or I could just watch something else, I guess. I wanted more. And it's, I saw people saying that about the episode before, about the Cass and Dean, and I get it, because they wanted more, and I was actually completely amazed that we got that. So, on an emotional level of wanting more, I get that. I would argue that the difference, however, is that with that episode and that scene, I got way more than I expected, and on this episode, I got way less than I expected. From these writers who've written these amazing stories, man, I would have loved to know. I would have loved it if Gabriel was, still existed, because we don't know anything about the angels. Everyone was, like, blown out of existence and then brought back. And so, like, if Gabriel had been existed and had tricked them or something, and that there was actually some kind of plot. Or if the monsters had turned out to be human, and then they realized and learned through the whole thing that, in fact, the monsters were not rebooted. Why did Jack choose to reboot the monsters? And also, it's supposed to be a good thing that Jack says, I'm not going to be hands-on. I'm just going to, because that didn't work out so well with Chuck. Okay, but in the beginning, we're pissed off at Chuck because Chuck decided not to be hands-on. Chuck decided to back off, and nobody could pray to him, and nobody could reach him, and he was unreachable, and he was uncaring, and whatever. So then, at the end, he was way too involved. So I don't understand that either, really, is why didn't Jack decide to be kind of in the middle or something? Because I guess he didn't know, but I mean, as far as the series goes, God just being completely hands off wasn't good either. We didn't like that either. So, yeah, I feel like, there were questions and things that could have been answered after the second to the last episode that just weren't. Nothing was addressed. It was so weird. They were gone, they were alone, and everybody was gone, and they were kind of sad, but they were going to pretend like they weren't, which is normal for them, of course. But basically they almost just acted like nothing happened and didn't, yeah. I don't know if I have anything new to say, if I'm just talking in circles at this point. I didn't like it. I want to figure out some way to see that and believe that it's not canon. When it's the definition of canon, of course. I don't want them to be dead. Although him being, Sam is dead. Sam's not dead yet because they just showed us the future, which I also don't really like. Because that's messing with my head. Sam's alive still. He hasn't died yet. They're just showing us that he's going to, I guess, basically. Dean is dead, and I don't like it, but the way that it happened, Dean is dead, and because of how it went about, it's really, really, really hard to accept. And also, said that I had everything said, but I'll tell you what. Jensen has said so many times, he keeps saying we'll be back, and he hopes they'll do a reboot of some kind, or a movie or something, and I don't even know if I believe that. I kind of wondered, even before, I think. I felt like he, like when you say we should all get together again like we used to, but you don't. Like I think he maybe believes it or feels it, but not in a true way, we should get together sometime, kind of a thing. Empty promise. And with that ending, I don't see how it's possible at all. And that's the thing too, I think him saying that so many times really kind of set me up for thinking that they were going to survive, even though I originally thought they never would. Guys, tell me what you think. Leave comments or do a VR or just do your own reaction. It's Ultraviolet Morgan. Be well.